Billionaire stunned to see his ex as his fiancée's nurse, then spots a little girl who looks just like him. Kiara froze in the doorway, her patient chart pressed against her chest like a shield. Her heart stopped, her breath caught, and for one terrifying moment, the world narrowed to a single face she had spent 5 years trying to forget. Marquis rose from his chair, his phone clattering to the floor. His voice came out strangled, barely a whisper. Kiara. She forced herself to breathe, forced professionalism into her voice even as her hands trembled. Monsieur Devereaux, I am here to check vitals. His eyes searched her face, desperate, confused, drinking in every detail like a man dying of thirst. 5 years, Kiara. 5 years without a word, without an explanation, without anything. And you are standing in front of me like you are a stranger. She did not look at him, could not look at him. Instead, she moved toward the hospital bed where his fiancée lay watching this exchange with razor-sharp attention. I am a professional, Mr. Devereaux. My personal history does not affect my ability to do my job. From the bed, Vanessa's voice cut through the tension like a blade. Personal history. How delightfully vague. Were you lovers? The silence that followed answered more completely than words ever could. And somewhere in this hospital, a 4-year-old girl with her father's eyes was playing in the daycare, completely unaware that her entire world was about to change. What would you do if the love of your life, the one who vanished without a trace, suddenly walked through a door you never expected? Have you ever lost someone so completely that their absence became the background noise of your entire existence? Have you ever wondered if there was something you did not know, something that could change everything if only you had the courage to find out? Marquis Devereaux was about to discover that some disappearances are not what they seem, that some secrets can rewrite history, and that the truth, when it finally emerges, can be more devastating and more beautiful than anything he ever imagined. But here's the question that will haunt you until the very end. Was Kiara running from him, or was she running from something far more sinister? Before we unravel this story of love, betrayal, and the devastating truth that changes everything, I need you to do something for me. If you believe in second chances, if you believe that the truth eventually comes to light, if you want to see how this story ends, hit that like button right now. Subscribe if you are new to this channel, because this story is going to take you places you never expected. Turn on notifications so you do not miss a single moment. And settle in, because what you are about to hear will stay with you long after the last word is spoken. Now, let us go back to where it all began. 3 weeks earlier, before that fateful encounter in the hospital room, Marquis Devereaux stood at the window of his Manhattan penthouse watching the city sprawl beneath him like a kingdom waiting to be conquered. At 34 years old, he had accomplished everything society told him should matter. His company, Devereaux Holdings, had a market valuation that made Forbes journalists scramble for adjectives. His face appeared regularly in business magazines, always photographed from angles that emphasized his success without revealing his emptiness. His name opened doors, commanded respect, inspired fear in competitors and admiration in investors. He had everything, and he had never felt more hollow in his entire life. The penthouse was silent except for the soft hum of the climate control system. 3,000 square feet of carefully curated luxury that looked more like a museum than a home. Everything was perfect. The furniture was positioned at exact angles. The art on the walls cost more than most people's houses. The view was worth millions. None of it mattered. His phone buzzed with a message from Vanessa. She was still at the hospital, recovering from the procedure that had gone wrong, requiring surgery and extended monitoring. He should be there. He should want to be there. Instead, he found himself staring at the city lights, wondering when his life had become a performance he was too tired to continue. He and Vanessa had been together for 2 years. Their relationship made sense on paper. She came from old money, understood the demands of his lifestyle, never complained about his long hours or frequent travel. She was beautiful in the way magazine covers demanded, polished and perfect, and utterly unchallenging. They had gotten engaged 6 months ago, not because of passion or overwhelming love, but because it seemed like the logical next step. 2 successful people combining assets and social capital, a merger disguised as romance. He should feel guilty for thinking of it that way. He did not. The truth was, Marquis had not felt anything real in 5 years. Not since the night he returned from Tokyo to find his apartment empty, her closet cleared out, her toothbrush gone from the bathroom, every trace of her existence erased as if she had never been there at all. Kiara, even now, 5 years later, Her name still caught in his chest like a splinter he could not remove. He had searched for her. God, how he had searched. Private investigators, personal connections, every resource his considerable fortune could buy. For 6 months, finding her had consumed him completely. And then, nothing. She had vanished so thoroughly, it was as if she had never existed at all. He had eventually stopped looking. Not because he stopped caring, but because the constant hoping and constant disappointment was destroying him more effectively than her absence ever could. He learned to bury the pain beneath work and ambition. He dated other women, beautiful women, accomplished women, women who would have made any man grateful. None of them touched whatever part of him Kiara had taken with her when she left. When Vanessa came along, practical and pleasant and completely undemanding, he convinced himself that contentment was enough. That the fire he had felt with Kiara was a young man's fantasy, unsustainable and ultimately destructive. That a comfortable partnership was more valuable than passionate love. He had almost believed it. His phone buzzed again. The hospital. Vanessa's doctor confirming that she was stable, but would need to remain in the private wing for at least another week. Marquis typed back a response confirming he would visit tomorrow morning, then set his phone aside and poured himself a drink he did not want. The city glittered below him, millions of lives intersecting and separating, stories beginning and ending every second. Somewhere out there, in some corner of this vast world, Kiara was living a life he knew nothing about. Maybe she was happy. Maybe she had found someone who did not remind her of whatever had made her run. Maybe she never thought of him at all. Marquis drained his glass and told himself it did not matter. Told himself he had moved on, built a new life, found contentment if not joy. He had almost convinced himself. Almost. The next morning, Marquis arrived at St. Augustine Medical Center at precisely 9 o'clock. The private wing occupied the top 3 floors of the hospital's east tower, accessible only through a separate entrance with security that rivaled most financial institutions. The patients here paid for privacy as much as medical care, and the staff understood that discretion was as important as competence. Marquis had been here every day for 3 weeks, watching Vanessa recover from a cosmetic procedure that had resulted in unexpected complications. She was healing well now, but the experience had been a reminder of how fragile everything was, how quickly circumstances could change. It had also been a reminder of how little he actually felt when faced with the possibility of losing her. He had been concerned, of course. He had hired the best specialists, demanded the finest care, done everything a devoted fiancé should do. But the bone-deep terror he should have felt, the kind of fear that rearranges priorities and clarifies what truly matters, that had been notably absent. He cared about Vanessa. He did not love her. The distinction was one he had been avoiding for months. The elevator doors opened on the private floor, and Marquis nodded to the receptionist as he passed. The hallways were quiet, hushed with the particular silence of places where money bought peace along with treatment. He walked the familiar route to Vanessa's suite, his mind already half occupied with the conference calls he would take from the waiting area. The door to her room was slightly ajar. He pushed it open, expecting to find Vanessa alone with her morning tea and her tablet, scrolling through social media updates about their engagement and analyzing the comments like intelligence reports. Instead, he found his past standing at her bedside. Kiara. She was wearing pale blue scrubs, her natural hair pulled back in a practical bun, a patient chart clutched to her chest. She had aged, but beautifully, settling into her features in a way that made her even more striking than he remembered. There was a strength in her posture now, a quiet confidence that had not been there 5 years ago. She was not looking at him. She was focused on Vanessa, wrapping a blood pressure cuff around her arm with the practiced efficiency of someone who had done this thousands of times. But he saw the moment she registered his presence, saw the slight tension in her shoulders, the almost imperceptible pause in her movements, the careful way she kept her eyes fixed on her patient. And in that moment, Marquis Devereaux, a man who controlled empires and moved markets with a single decision, found himself completely unable to speak. Kiara. Her name escaped before he could stop it, before he could consider the context or the consequences. It came out like a prayer and an accusation combined, carrying 5 years of questions he had never been able to ask. Kiara finished recording Vanessa's blood pressure before she acknowledged him. When she finally looked up, her expression was professionally neutral, as if he were any other visitor, any other stranger. Monsieur Devereaux. She kept her voice steady, controlled. I was not aware you would be arriving during morning rounds. I can return later if you prefer. He could not process what she was saying. could not make sense of the fact that she was here, in this hospital, in this room, treating his fiancée as if the past 5 years had not happened. How long have you worked here? 3 years. She turned back to Vanessa, making notes on her chart. I was assigned to this wing last month. I reviewed the patient list this morning and saw you were here. You knew I was here. The realization sharpened his confusion into something closer to anger. You knew, and you did not think to mention it. Did not think to switch assignments. I am a professional. Now she did look at him, and the careful blankness in her eyes was more devastating than any expression of emotion would have been. My personal history does not affect my ability to do my job. Besides, I understand congratulations are in order. On your engagement. The word fell between them like a stone dropped into still water. Vanessa had been watching this exchange with the focused attention of someone gathering intelligence. Marquis had almost forgotten she was there, had almost forgotten anything existed beyond Kiara's face and the 1,000 questions crowding his mind. Marquis. Vanessa's voice cut through his distraction. Are you going to introduce us? He struggled to find words, to remember how normal conversation worked. This is Kiara Montgomery. We knew each other, years ago. Knew each other. Vanessa's smile did not reach her eyes. How delightfully vague. The way you are looking at her suggests something more specific. Were you lovers? The silence stretched like a rubber band about to snap. Kiara finished her notes with careful precision, her movements unhurried despite the tension filling the room. Everything looks stable, Miss Hartwell. Dr. Oduya will be in for rounds at 4. Is there anything else you need before I continue my rounds? Actually, Vanessa's tone sweetened in a way that made Marquis's instincts flare with warning. I would love some tea, something herbal if you have it, and perhaps we could chat when you bring it. I am so curious about Marquis's past. He is terribly private about it. I will see what is available. Kiara left without looking at Marquis again. The door closed behind her with a soft click, and suddenly the room felt smaller, the air thicker, the silence oppressive. Vanessa turned to him with eyes like flint. An ex-girlfriend working as my nurse. That is quite the coincidence. It is a coincidence. Marquis forced himself to sit, to appear calm despite the chaos raging inside him. I have not seen her in 5 years. I had no idea she was in this city, let alone working here. She is pretty. Vanessa's observation carried an edge, in that natural, understated way that is so fashionable now. The kind of pretty that photographs well without trying. How long were you together? Vanessa. How long, Marquis? He closed his eyes, feeling the past pressing against the walls he had built to contain it. 2 years. It ended badly. She left without saying goodbye, without any explanation. I never found out why. And you looked for her. The question cut deeper than Vanessa probably intended. He had looked. He had torn his life apart looking. He had called every mutual friend, checked every database he could access, hired investigators who specialized in finding people who did not want to be found. For 6 months, Kiara had been his obsession, his mystery, the ghost that haunted every empty room. And then he had given up, not because he stopped wondering, but because the wondering was destroying him. It does not matter. He forced conviction into his voice. That was the past. You are my present, my future. But even as he said it, he could taste the lie on his tongue. Kiara made it to the staff bathroom before the tears came. She locked herself in the last stall and pressed her palms against her eyes, willing herself to regain control, to remember why she had spent 5 years building a life that specifically avoided this moment. But she had always known it could not last forever. Their city was not big enough, their circles too likely to overlap eventually. She had just hoped she would have more time, that when this moment came, she would be ready. She was not ready. Seeing him there, older but still devastatingly handsome, still possessing that gravitational pull that made everyone around him lean in. It had taken everything she had not to run, not to grab his hands and tell him everything, explain why she had disappeared, reveal the secret she had been carrying for 5 years. But he was engaged, to a patient in her wing, to a woman with sharp eyes and sharper instincts who clearly recognized a threat when she saw one. She could not disrupt his life now, not when he had obviously moved on, built something with someone else. It would not be fair to him, and it definitely would not be fair to Lily. Her phone buzzed. A text from the hospital daycare. Lily is asking for you. She says it is urgent, but I think she just wants to show you her art project. Despite everything, Kiara smiled. Her daughter had inherited her father's sense of drama, along with his dark eyes and the particular tilt of his head when he was thinking hard about something. Tell her I will be there in 20 minutes, and that her art project better be spectacular. She splashed water on her face, checked her reflection, and straightened her shoulders. She was a professional. She was a mother. She was the woman who had survived heartbreak and built a life from nothing. She could handle one awkward day of unavoidable encounters. She could handle anything. The rest of the shift passed in a blur of patients and procedures, of vital signs and medication schedules. Kiara threw herself into her work with the focused intensity that had carried her through nursing school, through sleepless nights with an infant, through every challenge the past 5 years had thrown at her. But her mind kept drifting back to that hospital room, to the shock on Marquis's face when he saw her, to the way his voice had cracked on her name, as if she were someone who mattered, as if the past 5 years had been as hard for him as they had been for her. She had to stop thinking like that. He was engaged. He had moved on. Whatever they had shared was ancient history, buried beneath layers of time and distance and the choices she had made to survive. When her shift finally ended, Kiara practically ran to the daycare. Lily was waiting by the door, bouncing with the particular energy of a 4-year-old who had been patient long enough. "Mama." Lily launched herself at Kiara's legs. "I made a dinosaur. It is a T-Rex, but with wings because regular T-Rexes cannot fly, and that is sad." Kiara scooped her daughter into her arms, breathing in the familiar scent of finger paint and childhood. "That is very creative, baby. Show me." Lily produced a paper plate covered in green paint, cotton balls, and what appeared to be actual leaves glued at alarming angles. "See, this is his body, and these are his wings. And I gave him laser eyes because Mrs. Patterson said dinosaurs did not have laser eyes, but I said how does she know she was not there?" Kiara bit back a laugh. "You make an excellent point. Scientists are always discovering new things about dinosaurs. Maybe laser eyes will be next." That is what I said. They walked to the car together, Lily chattering about her day with the inexhaustible energy of childhood. As Kiara buckled her into the car seat, she found herself studying her daughter's face the way she did sometimes, cataloging the features she saw there. Lily had her mother's smile and her mother's stubborn streak, but she had her father's eyes. Those dark, intense eyes that missed nothing, that looked at the world with curiosity and determination and the absolute certainty that anything was possible if you just tried hard enough. She looked like Marquis. She had always looked like Marquis from the moment she was born. The shape of her face, the particular curve of her chin, the way her brow furrowed when she was concentrating. Kiara had spent 4 years praying no one would notice the resemblance. Now, with Marquis in the same hospital where she worked, that prayer felt dangerously naive. "Mama." Lily's voice interrupted her spiraling thoughts. "Why do you look sad?" "I am not sad, baby." Kiara forced a smile. "Just tired. It was a long day. Can we get it ice cream? Ice cream helps when you are tired. That is science. Is it now?" Mrs. Patterson said so. She had ice cream yesterday because her feet hurt and then her feet felt better. Kiara laughed despite everything. The logic was irrefutable. "I suppose we can get ice cream. But you have to eat your dinner first." "Obviously, Mama. I am not a monster." They stopped at the grocery store for dinner supplies, wandering the aisles while Lily provided running commentary on everything they passed. The normalcy of it was grounding. This was her life now. This was what she had built. A small apartment in a good neighborhood, a job that challenged her and paid the bills, a daughter who made every difficult day worthwhile. She did not need Marquis Devereaux. She did not need anyone. She had proven that 5 years ago when she walked away from everything they had built together, when she discovered she was pregnant and decided, in the same devastating moment, that she could not tell him, could not trust him, could not risk her child's heart on a man who had already proven his capacity for betrayal. She had been right to leave. She had to believe she had been right to leave. That night, after dinner and ice cream and the elaborate bedtime routine that had evolved over 4 years of single parenting, Kiara sat in the dim light of her living room and let herself remember what she had spent 5 years trying to forget. She and Marquis had met at a coffee shop, not a fancy gala or a business event or any of the places someone like him usually appeared. Just a random Tuesday morning when they both reached for the last blueberry muffin at the same time. "Excuse me." His voice had been confident but not arrogant. "I believe I was here first." Kiara looked up into the most striking face she had ever seen. "Actually," she had replied, "I have been eyeing that muffin since I walked in the door." You just got to the counter first because you have longer legs." He had laughed, really laughed, with genuine surprise and delight. "That is possibly the most logical argument anyone has ever made against me. Tell you what, we split the muffin. I buy you a coffee to make up for my unfair height advantage." And just like that, her entire life had changed. They had talked for 2 hours that morning. He was not what she expected from someone in his position. He was curious and engaged, asking questions about her life, her work, her dreams. He treated her like she was fascinating, not because he wanted something from her, but because he genuinely wanted to know her. They exchanged numbers. He called the next day. A week later, they had their first official date, dinner at a restaurant that made her nervous until he leaned across the table and whispered that he had looked up the menu beforehand too, just to make sure he would not mispronounce anything embarrassing. She fell in love with him slowly, and then all at once. He was complicated and driven, and sometimes infuriatingly focused on work, but he was also kind in ways that surprised her. Patient when she needed patience, present in a way that made her feel seen. For 2 years, they built a life together. They talked about the future, marriage, children, growing old together. She moved into his penthouse. They had their own drawers, their own sides of the bed, their own morning routines that fit together like puzzle pieces. She had been so certain of him. And then came that night. Kiara closed her eyes, letting the memory wash over her even though she knew it would hurt. She had just left the doctor's office, pregnant, 6 weeks along. A baby she had not planned but immediately, overwhelmingly wanted. She had driven straight to Marquis's penthouse, imagining his face when she told him, imagining the life they would build together, imagining everything she had always wanted finally within reach. She let herself in with her key. The living room was dark, but she heard voices from the bedroom. Soft, intimate voices. She should have called out, should have announced herself, should have confronted whatever was happening. Instead, she crept closer, some instinct telling her she needed to see before she was seen. The bedroom door was slightly open. Through the gap she could see candles flickering, champagne on the nightstand, clothes scattered across the floor. And in the bed, a woman with dark hair spread across the pillow. And next to her, a man's silhouette, a voice she knew better than her own. The words were muffled, but the tone was clear, intimate, tender. The voice of a man with a woman he wanted. Kiara had stood frozen for what felt like hours, but was probably only minutes. Her hand had moved instinctively to her stomach, to the life growing there, to the future she had imagined so clearly. And then she had turned around and walked out of his life forever. She had packed her things the next day while he was supposedly still in Tokyo on business. She had moved to a motel, then to a friend's couch, then eventually to the small apartment where she started over. She never told him about the baby, never gave him the chance to explain, to lie, to try to have it both ways. She just disappeared, changed her phone number, moved to a new neighborhood, built a new life from the ashes of the old one. It had been the hardest thing she had ever done, and she had done it because she knew with absolute certainty that she could not raise a child with a man who had betrayed her that completely. She had been right to leave. She had to believe she had been right to leave. Kiara wiped the tears from her face and forced herself to stand. That was the past. Lily was the present. And tomorrow, she would go back to work and treat Vanessa Hartwell with the same professionalism she showed every patient, regardless of who was sitting in the visitor's chair. She could do this. She had survived harder things. The next few days passed in a careful dance of avoidance and professionalism. Kiara adjusted her rounds to minimize time in Vanessa's room. When encounters with Marquis were unavoidable, she kept her interactions brief and clinical, never meeting his eyes, never allowing space for personal conversation. He tried, of course. He tried to catch her in the hallway, to follow her when she left Vanessa's room, to create opportunities for the conversation she was determined not to have. "Kiara, please." His voice followed her down the corridor on the 3rd day. "Just 5 minutes. I need to understand." She did not turn around. "There is nothing to understand, Mr. Devereaux. We were together. It ended. That was 5 years ago. Whatever questions you have, the answers will not change anything. They might change everything." She paused then, something in his voice catching at her despite her determination. "Why did you leave?" His words were raw, stripped of the polished composure he usually wore. "I came back from Tokyo and you were gone. No note, no message, nothing. I spent 6 months looking for you. I hired investigators. I called everyone we knew. It was like you vanished off the face of the earth. Kiara turned slowly, her heart pounding. You were in Tokyo. Yes. The merger with Hayashi Industries. You knew about it. I called you every night from the hotel. The confusion must have shown on her face because Marquis took a step closer, his expression shifting from frustration to something more careful. Kiara, what did you think happened? I thought. She stopped. The words would not come, because if he was in Tokyo, if he really was in Tokyo, then what had she seen that night? What did you see? His voice was gentle now, the voice she remembered from before everything fell apart. What made you leave? Before she could answer, her phone buzzed. A text from the daycare. Lily fell on the playground. She is okay, but asking for you. Can you come? Kiara's maternal instincts overrode everything else. I have to go. My daughter needs me. She was halfway down the hallway before she realized what she had said. Before she registered the weight of the word she had never meant to speak in his presence. Daughter. But she could not stop to explain. Lily needed her. Lily always came first. She would deal with the consequences later. Marquis stood frozen in the hospital corridor, Kiara's words echoing in his mind. My daughter needs me. Daughter. Kiara had a daughter, a child she had mentioned so casually, as if it were common knowledge, as if it were not a revelation that fundamentally altered everything he thought he understood about the past 5 years. His mind raced with questions. How old was the child? Who was the father? When had Kiara gotten married, or had she gotten married at all? And underneath all those questions, a darker one he could not quite articulate, a suspicion that felt too enormous to examine directly. He needed air, needed space to think, needed to be anywhere other than this corridor where the walls seemed to be closing in. Marquis walked without destination, his expensive shoes echoing against the polished floors. The private wing was quiet, designed for patients who valued discretion, but he felt exposed, raw, as if everyone who passed could see the turmoil beneath his composed exterior. He turned a corner and found himself facing a window that looked down into an internal courtyard, and more specifically, into the hospital's daycare facility. Children were playing below, their laughter faint but audible through the glass. Brightly colored playground equipment dotted the space. Teachers moved among the children, supervising, redirecting, wiping noses and tying shoes. Marquis watched without really seeing, his mind still churning with questions about Kiara, about her daughter, about the past 5 years and all the things he did not understand. And then one child caught his attention. She was standing slightly apart from the others, examining something in her hands with an intensity that seemed too focused for such a small person. She had dark curly hair pulled back, in 2 puffs and skin the color of honey. As Marquis watched, she looked up and pointed at something in the distance, her face animated with whatever discovery she was sharing. For a moment, he saw her clearly. The shape of her eyes, the particular curve of her chin, the way her brow furrowed when she was concentrating. The ground shifted beneath his feet. That child looked exactly like the photographs of himself as a toddler. The photographs his mother kept in a leather album, the ones he had looked at 100 times, the ones that captured the particular shape of his face before it fully matured into adulthood. That child looked like him. Marquis gripped the windowsill hard enough to hurt. His heart was pounding in a way that had nothing to do with stress and everything to do with a sudden, devastating certainty. Kiara had disappeared 5 years ago. She had a daughter. If that child was 4 years old, if Kiara had left 5 years ago, if she had been pregnant when she vanished, the math was brutal and simple. He pressed his forehead against the cool glass, watching the child below who was now engaged in what appeared to be an elaborate explanation involving hand gestures and what might have been dinosaur sounds. His child. She might be his child. And he had missed 4 years of her life because Kiara had never told him she existed. Marquis did not know how long he stood there. Time became meaningless, measured only in the beating of his heart and the questions multiplying in his mind. Why had Kiara left? What had she thought she saw? Why had she never given him the chance to explain, to defend himself, to be a father to his own child? And what was he supposed to do now? He heard footsteps behind him and knew, before he turned, that it was her. Her name is Lily. Kiara's voice was quiet, resigned, as if she had known this moment was inevitable. She just turned 4. She likes dinosaurs, hates broccoli, and asks at least 30 questions a day about absolutely everything. She's the smartest, most stubborn, most wonderful person I have ever known. Marquis turned slowly, afraid that if he moved too fast he might shatter into pieces. Is she mine? It was barely a whisper. Yes, the word hung in the air between them, simple and devastating. Marquis made a sound that might have been a laugh or a sob. He pressed his palm against the glass, watching the child below, his child, who had no idea her life was about to change. Why? The question came out broken. Why did you never tell me? Kiara was silent for a long moment, her eyes fixed on the same window, the same view, the same little girl playing in the courtyard. Because the night I found out I was pregnant was the same night I walked into your penthouse and found your best friend in your bed. The words fell like bombs. What? I came to tell you about the baby. Kiara's voice was steady, but he could hear the old pain beneath it. I let myself in with my key. There were candles in the bedroom, champagne on the nightstand, clothes on the floor, and I heard voices. Your voice. And a woman. Kiara, I stood in your living room for 15 minutes. She continued as if he had not spoken, trying to decide whether to confront you or just disappear. And then I heard laughter. Intimate laughter. And I could not stay another second. Marquis's mind was racing, trying to make sense of what she was saying. I was in Tokyo. I was there for a week. You know I was there. I called you every night. Then explain what I saw. Her voice cracked for the first time. Explain who was in your apartment. Explain the champagne and the candles and the clothes. Explain the voice that sounded exactly like yours. I cannot explain something that did not happen. His frustration was palpable, but so was his confusion. I never brought anyone to my penthouse. Never. I never cheated on you. Ever. Then who did I see? He shook his head, searching for answers he did not have. I do not know. But Kiara, I swear on everything I have, I was not in that apartment. I was on the other side of the world, in meetings that lasted 14 hours a day, calling you every night because I missed you so much I could barely function. She looked at him then, really looked at him, and he saw the confusion in her eyes, the beginning of doubt. You were really in Tokyo. Check the flight records. He stepped closer, his voice urgent. The hotel logs, the meeting minutes. I have documentation of every hour of that week because my lawyers insisted on it for the contract. I can prove I was not there. Kiara's composure cracked. Her eyes filled with tears. She was clearly fighting. But I saw. I heard. Someone made you think you saw. Marquis's jaw tightened with sudden, terrible certainty. Someone deliberately set this up. Someone wanted you to believe I had betrayed you. Who would do that? I do not know. But I am going to find out. He cupped her face in his hands, tilting it until she had no choice but to meet his eyes. Someone destroyed us, Kiara. Someone made you run. Someone cost me 4 years of my daughter's life. And I am going to find out who. The tears spilled over. She did not pull away. I should have confronted you. I should have asked instead of running. You were pregnant and scared, and you saw something that looked damning. He brushed the tears from her cheeks with his thumbs. I understand why you ran, but you are not running anymore. I am not letting you disappear again. Not now that I know. You are engaged. Her voice was barely a whisper. To a woman, recovering in a hospital bed, Vanessa and I are a business arrangement that became a habit. We both know it. The marriage would have been practical, sensible, strategically advantageous. It never would have been love. And what is this? I do not know yet, but I know it matters. You matter. Lily matters. Finding out the truth matters. And I am not going to rest until I understand exactly what happened 5 years ago. Kiara closed her eyes, and he felt the tension slowly leaving her body. I wanted you to be guilty, she admitted. I needed you to be guilty, because if you were not, then I made the worst decision of my life for no reason. We both lost something. Marquis pulled her into his arms and she let him. We both lost time we cannot get back, but we can find out who did this, and we can make sure they answer for it. They stood there for a long moment, holding each other in the hospital corridor while their daughter played in the courtyard below, completely unaware that her parents were beginning to unravel a lie that had shaped all their lives. This is getting interesting, is it not? I need you to pause for a moment and think about what just happened. Marquis lost 4 years of his daughter's life because someone deliberately made Kiara believe he had cheated. She spent 5 years thinking the father of her child was a liar and a betrayer. And somewhere out there, the person who orchestrated this destruction was living their life as if nothing happened. If you are invested in seeing justice served, If you want to know who was behind this devastating deception, hit that like button right now. Drop a comment telling me who you think the villain might be. And stay with me because the investigation is about to begin, and the truth is going to be more twisted than anyone could imagine. Now, let us continue. Marquis spent the next week gathering evidence like a man possessed. He hired the best private investigators money could buy. He contacted his security team, his legal team, anyone who might have access to records from 5 years ago. He pulled flight manifests and hotel registrations and building security footage with the single-minded focus that had built his empire. The truth emerged slowly, piece by piece, like a puzzle coming together in the most painful way imaginable. The flight records confirmed what he already knew. He had been in Tokyo the entire week Kiara saw whatever she saw. His credit card showed purchases at the hotel gift shop, the business center, the restaurant where he had eaten dinner every night while reviewing contracts. He had been exactly where he claimed to be, which meant someone else had been in his apartment. The building security footage was more difficult to obtain. 5 years was a long time, and most companies did not keep records that far back. But Marquis's building was different. The management company had implemented a long-term storage protocol for exactly these situations, for residents whose lives might require historical verification. When the footage finally arrived, Marquis watched it in his office at 3 a.m. with a glass of whiskey he never touched. There, his security consultant pointed at the screen. That is your apartment door. And that is someone entering with a key. The woman on the screen had dark hair and a familiar posture. She was carrying a shopping bag and looking around nervously before she slipped inside. Marquis felt his blood run cold. That is Bethany Crow. His voice came out strangled. My assistant at the time. The footage continued. A man arrived shortly after, his face obscured by a baseball cap. He entered the apartment with Bethany, and neither emerged until the next morning. She used her access to your key. The security consultant spoke carefully, aware of the bomb he was delivering. She must have copied it during her employment. And she brought someone to stage a scene in your apartment. Why? The consultant paused the footage, turning to face Marquis directly. That would be a question for her. But based on what you have told me, it seems like she wanted to break up your relationship. She wanted you to be available. The pieces fell into place with sickening clarity. Bethany had been his assistant for 3 years before that night. She was efficient, reliable, always available. He had trusted her with access to his apartment, his schedule, his life. He had never suspected she might be in love with him. Looking back now, he could see the signs he had missed. The way she lingered when she did not need to. The subtle hostility toward Kiara that he had dismissed as professional protectiveness. The disappointment that flickered across her face whenever he talked about his future with the woman he loved. Bethany had been obsessed with him, and when it became clear he would never choose her, she had decided to remove the competition by destroying his life. Finding Bethany took another week. She had transferred to the London office 4 years ago, supposedly for a career opportunity, though now Marquis understood she had been running from the consequences of what she had done. When his investigators finally located her, Marquis flew to London himself. This was not a conversation he was willing to have through intermediaries. She was working in a boutique consulting firm, apparently having built a successful career on the foundation of his betrayal. When she saw him waiting in her office lobby, her face went white. Marquis. Her voice shook. What are you doing here? I think you know exactly what I am doing here. He did not raise his voice. He did not need to. The cold fury in his eyes said everything. They found a conference room. She sat across from him with the nervous energy of someone who had been waiting 5 years for this moment. I know what you did. Marquis placed his phone on the table between them, the security footage cued to the moment she entered his apartment. I know you copied my key. I know you staged a scene to make Kiara think I was cheating. I know you destroyed my relationship and cost me 4 years with my daughter. Bethany's composure cracked. Tears spilled down her cheeks. I never thought she would actually leave. What did you expect? I expected her to confront you. Her voice was small, childlike. I expected you to fight, to break up, and then I would be there to comfort you. I thought you would finally see me. Finally realize I was the one who understood you, who supported you, who deserved you. You thought destroying my life would make me love you. I did not know she was pregnant. Bethany was sobbing now. I did not know she would disappear. When she vanished, when she just left without a trace, I panicked. I thought if I stayed in New York you would figure it out. So, I ran too. I have spent 5 years hiding from what I did, and it has destroyed me. I am sorry. I am so sorry. Marquis looked at the woman across from him, this person he had trusted, this person who had seemed so harmless and felt nothing but cold rage. You are sorry. Every day. Every single day. Your apology is 5 years too late. He stood, collecting his phone. My lawyers will be in contact. You will be facing criminal charges for breaking and entering. Anything else my team can find will be added to the list, and you will never work in any field even tangentially connected to my business again. Marquis, please. Please what? He turned at the door. Please understand. Please forgive. You stole my daughter's childhood. You cost me the woman I loved. You let me believe I had done something so terrible that she could not even face me. There is no apology that covers that. There is no forgiveness large enough. All there is now is consequences. He left her crying in the conference room and felt nothing but the cold satisfaction of finally knowing the truth. When Marquis returned to Denver, he went straight to Kiara's apartment. It was late, past the hour when reasonable people showed up unannounced, but he could not wait. The truth was burning in his chest, and she deserved to know. She answered the door in pajamas, her hair wrapped in a silk scarf, her eyes widening when she saw him. Marquis, it is 11 at night. I know who did it. The words stopped her. She stepped back, letting him enter, closing the door behind him. Who? Bethany Crow, my assistant. She was in love with me, and when I did not notice, she decided to remove you from the equation. She copied my key, staged the scene with some man she paid, and timed it for when she knew you would come to the apartment. Kiara sank onto the couch, processing. Your assistant. She confessed everything. She thought you would confront me. We would fight. She would be there to comfort me. She never expected you to disappear. But I did. You did. And she panicked and ran to London, and spent 5 years hiding from what she had done. Kiara was quiet for a long moment. So you never cheated. Never. I was in Tokyo the whole time. I have flight records, hotel records, meeting minutes, documentation proving I was exactly where I said I was. And everything I believed for 5 years was a lie. Yes, the silence stretched between them, heavy with the weight of time lost and truth finally revealed. I ruined everything. Kiara's voice broke. I made the worst decision of my life based on something that never happened. I kept your daughter from you for 4 years because I believed a lie. You made a reasonable decision based on what you saw. Marquis sat beside her, taking her hands in his. You were pregnant and scared, and you saw what looked like absolute proof of betrayal. Anyone would have run. I should have confronted you. Maybe. But you did what you thought you had to do to protect yourself and our child. I cannot blame you for that. She looked at him then, really looked at him, and he saw the tears streaming down her face. I wasted so much time. We wasted so much time. We did. But we do not have to waste any more. Kiara leaned into him, and he wrapped his arms around her, holding her while she cried. Holding her while the past 5 years of pain and confusion and loneliness finally released. I loved you, she whispered into his chest. I loved you so much, and I thought you destroyed that. I know, and I never stopped loving you, even when I thought you had left for no reason, even when I convinced myself to move on. I never stopped. What do we do now? He pulled back, wiping the tears from her face. Now we take it slow. We figure out who we are after 5 years apart. And I get to know my daughter, if you will let me. She wants to meet her father. Kiara smiled through her tears. She has been asking questions for a year. I have been deflecting because I did not know what to say. We will figure out what to say together. And us. Marquis kissed her forehead, gentle and tender. Us will figure itself out. For now, I just want to be here. I just want to stop missing you. She leaned into him again, and he held her until she fell asleep. When he finally left, as the first light of dawn was breaking over the city, Marquis felt something he had not felt in 5 years. Hope. Real, genuine, terrifying hope. And this time, he was not going to let it slip away. This is a natural pausing point as we have reached approximately 9,000 words. The foundation has been laid, the truth has been revealed, and now comes the most important part of the story, the rebuilding. In the second half, we will witness Marquis meeting Lily for the first time, the slow and careful reconstruction of trust between him and Kiara, the challenges of becoming a family after years of separation, and the ultimate question of whether second chances can truly lead to forever. Before we continue, I want to hear from you. What do you think about Bethany's betrayal? Do you believe Marquis and Kiara can truly rebuild after everything that has happened? Drop a comment with your thoughts and let me know if you want me to continue with part 2. If you have made it this far, you are clearly invested in this story. Hit that like button if you are rooting for Marquis and Kiara. Subscribe if you have not already, because part 2 is going to take you on an emotional journey you will not forget. Turn on notifications so you do not miss the moment when this family finally finds its way home. The first meeting between Marquis and Lily was scheduled for a Saturday afternoon at the park near Kiara's apartment. Neutral territory, Kiara had insisted. Somewhere Lily feels safe and in control. We cannot just spring this on her. She needs to feel like she has a choice. Marquis had agreed to everything. He would have agreed to meet his daughter on the moon if that was what Kiara required. After 4 years of absence, he was not about to argue about logistics. But agreeing to the plan and actually executing it were two different things. Marquis arrived at the park 45 minutes early, which he recognized was excessive but could not bring himself to change. He had changed clothes 3 times that morning, finally settling on jeans and a casual sweater that he hoped made him look approachable rather than intimidating. He had researched age-appropriate conversation topics. He had memorized facts about dinosaurs, which Kiara had mentioned were Lily's current obsession. He had never been more nervous in his entire life. The park was busy with Saturday families. Children shrieked on playground equipment while parents clustered on benches, half watching their kids and half scrolling through phones. Dogs bounded across the grass. Joggers weaved between picnickers. Marcos found a bench near the main entrance and sat down, then stood up, then sat down again. His hands would not stay still. His heart was beating so hard he could feel it in his throat. What if she did not like him? What if she resented him for not being there? What if he said something wrong and ruined everything before it even began? He was so lost in his spiraling thoughts that he almost missed them arriving. Kiara appeared first, walking through the park entrance with the easy confidence of someone who belonged here. She was dressed casually, more relaxed than he had ever seen her at the hospital, her hair loose around her shoulders. And beside her, holding her hand, was Lily. Marquis forgot how to breathe. She was perfect. That was the only word his overwhelmed mind could produce. She was wearing a purple dress with dinosaurs printed on it and sneakers that lit up when she walked. Her hair was styled in 2 puffs adorned with colorful barrettes. She was chattering to Kiara about something, her free hand gesturing expressively, her face animated with whatever story she was telling. His daughter was walking toward him, and he had no idea what to say. Kiara spotted him and guided Lily in his direction. As they approached, Marquis forced himself to stand, to try to look calm and welcoming rather than terrified and overwhelmed. "Lily." Kiara's voice was gentle. "This is Mr. Marquis. He is an old friend of Mommy's, and he wanted to meet you." Lily studied him with an intensity that felt almost physical. Her dark eyes, so much like his own, examined every detail of his face, his clothes, his posture. She was sizing him up the way a general might assess an opposing army. "You are tall," she announced finally. "I am." Marquis managed to keep his voice steady. "Your mom mentioned that once. Something about unfair height advantages and blueberry muffins." Lily's brow furrowed, clearly confused by the reference, but before she could ask for clarification, she noticed something else. "You have eyes like me." The observation hit Marquis like a physical blow. He crouched down to her level, bringing their matching eyes to the same height. "I do, and you have your mother's beautiful smile." Lily considered this. "Do you like dinosaurs?" "I do, actually. Especially the ones that flew. Pterodactyls are not actually dinosaurs." Lily corrected him immediately, her tone carrying the patient condescension of someone explaining something obvious. "They are pterosaurs. It is a common misconception." Marquis glanced at Kiara, who was watching this exchange with barely concealed amusement. "I stand corrected." He turned back to Lily with genuine interest. "What is the difference?" This launched Lily into an extensive explanation involving wing structure, taxonomic classifications, and several facts that Marquis was fairly certain she had memorized from a documentary. He listened with complete attention, asking questions, expressing appropriate amazement at particularly interesting details, treating her expertise with the same respect he would give any specialist in their field. By the time she finished, Lily was visibly pleased with her new audience. "You are a good listener," she announced. "Most adults pretend to listen, but they are really just waiting for me to stop. I genuinely want to know. Marquis replied honestly. You are clearly the expert here. I am. She agreed without false modesty. Do you want to see the playground? They have a climbing structure that looks like a brachiosaurus, but the proportions are wrong. I would love to see it. Lily grabbed his hand without hesitation, as if holding hands with a man she had just met was the most natural thing in the world, and began pulling him toward the playground equipment. Marquis followed, his heart so full it hurt. Behind them, he heard Kiara exhale a breath she had probably been holding since they arrived. The afternoon unfolded like something out of a dream Marquis had not known he was having. Lily showed him every piece of playground equipment, providing running commentary on structural soundness, optimal climbing routes, and historical inaccuracies in any dinosaur-themed elements. She introduced him to 2 children she apparently knew from preschool, casually mentioning that this is Mr. Marquis. He knows about pterosaurs. She asked him to push her on the swings, then demanded he swing next to her so they could have a race. She convinced him to go down the slide, despite his suit pants, because you cannot really understand the aerodynamics unless you experience them. She was brilliant and stubborn and absolutely fearless, and Marquis found himself falling completely and irrevocably in love with his daughter. I am hungry, Lily announced after 2 hours of non-stop activity. Can we get ice cream? We need to eat real food first, Kiara interjected. Then maybe ice cream. What about him? Lily pointed at Marquis. Can he come too? If he wants to. Lily turned to Marquis with an expression that suggested refusal was not really an option. Do you want to? More than anything. They walked to a nearby sandwich shop, Lily positioned between them, one hand holding Kiara's and the other holding Marquis's. It was such a simple thing, such an ordinary family moment, and it made Marquis want to weep for all the moments like this he had missed. Over lunch, Lily asked approximately 47 questions. Some were about dinosaurs. Some were about Marquis's job, which she seemed unimpressed by after he explained it did not involve actual physical building. Some were about whether he had any pets, which he did not but was now seriously considering. And then came the question he had been expecting and dreading since the moment he saw her. Are you my dad? Lily delivered the question with the same casual directness she applied to everything else, as if asking about biological parentage was no different from asking about pterosaur wing structure. Marquis looked at Kiara, silently asking permission. She gave the slightest nod. Yes, he answered simply. I am. Lily processed this information, her expression thoughtful rather than shocked. Is that why you have eyes like me? That is exactly why. And you did not know I existed until now. He hesitated, trying to find words that were honest but age-appropriate. I did not. Your mom and I had a misunderstanding a long time ago, and she moved away before she knew she was going to have you. I only found out about you last week. A misunderstanding. Lily repeated, like when Emma thought I stole her crayons, but really they were in her cubby the whole time. Something like that. Marquis smiled despite the ache in his chest. A big misunderstanding that made us both very sad for a long time. But you are not sad now. No. Now I am very, very happy, because I finally got to meet you. Lily considered this, then nodded with apparent satisfaction. Okay. She returned to her sandwich. Can we still get ice cream? Marquis laughed, a sound that surprised him with its genuineness. We can definitely get ice cream. They finished lunch and walked to an ice cream shop 2 blocks away. Lily deliberated over flavors with the seriousness of someone making a life-altering decision, finally settling on chocolate chip cookie dough in a waffle cone. Marquis got vanilla because he was too overwhelmed to think about flavor preferences. Kiara got strawberry and said nothing about the tears she kept blinking back. They sat on a bench outside the shop, eating their ice cream in the golden afternoon light. Are you going to be my dad from now on? Lily asked between licks. Or just for today? From now on, Marquis replied. If that is okay with you, it is okay. She nodded decisively. But you have to learn more dinosaur facts. Your knowledge is very basic. I will study hard. Good. She returned to her ice cream, apparently satisfied with the terms of their new arrangement. Marquis looked at Kiara over their daughter's head and saw his own wonder and grief and hope reflected in her eyes. They had lost so much time. They could never get those years back. But sitting here now, watching their daughter dissect the structural integrity of her waffle cone, Marquis realized that what mattered was not what they had lost. What mattered was what they could build from here. When it was time to leave, Lily hugged Marquis goodbye without hesitation. When will you come back? She asked. Soon, he promised. As soon as your mom says it is okay, she says tomorrow. Kiara laughed. I did not say tomorrow. But you could. Lily looked up at her mother with pleading eyes. He is nice, and he needs to learn more dinosaur facts. That takes time. She has a point about the facts, Marquis offered. Kiara shook her head, but she was smiling. Fine. Tomorrow, but just for the afternoon. Lily cheered and hugged Marquis again, tighter this time. See you tomorrow, she announced. Bring a notebook. There will be a quiz. She ran toward the apartment building, leaving her parents standing on the sidewalk in the fading light. She is incredible, Marquis said quietly. You did an amazing job with her. She is her own person, Kiara replied. I just tried not to mess her up too badly. You did more than that. He turned to face her. You raised her alone. You gave her stability and confidence and more dinosaur knowledge than most paleontologists. That is not just not messing up. That is remarkable. Kiara's eyes filled with tears she did not try to hide. I thought about telling you. So many times I almost called. Almost showed up at your office, but I convinced myself she was better off without a father who could not be faithful. And now I have to figure out how to live with the fact that I was wrong, that I kept her from you for no reason. Marquis took her hands in his. We were both victims of someone else's manipulation. You did not know. How could you know? You made a decision based on what you believed was true. That does not make it right. No, but it makes it understandable. And if we're going to move forward, we cannot keep punishing ourselves for the past. We can only do better from here. She squeezed his hands, then released them. I should get inside. She has a bath and bed routine that waits for no one. Of course. He watched her walk toward the building, then called out before she reached the door. Kiara. She turned. Thank you. For today. For letting me meet her. For giving me this chance. She held his gaze for a long moment. Thank you for showing up. For being who she needed you to be. Then she disappeared inside, and Marquis was left standing on the sidewalk, his heart fuller than it had ever been. The next few weeks established a rhythm that felt natural despite its newness. Marquis visited every weekend, arriving Saturday morning and staying until Sunday evening. He and Lily developed rituals that became sacred. Pancakes for breakfast, museums or parks or aquariums in the afternoon. Elaborate bedtime stories that featured dinosaurs in increasingly improbable scenarios. He video called every night he was not there, reading bedtime stories through the phone screen, answering Lily's endless questions, simply being present even when he could not be physical. And slowly, almost imperceptibly, the walls between him and Kiara began to crack. It started with small things. She would linger after putting Lily to bed, joining him for a glass of wine and conversation that gradually shifted from logistics to something more personal. They talked about their years apart, about who they had become, about the differences between survival and living. I dated, she admitted one night, curled on the opposite end of her couch. A few times, nothing that lasted more than a couple months. Why not? Because they were not you. The confession hung in the air between them. Marquis set down his wine glass, giving her words the weight they deserved. Vanessa was the first relationship I had that lasted more than a year since you left, and even that was more about momentum than feeling. We were compatible on paper. We made sense in all the ways that did not actually matter. When did you end it? The day after I found out about Lily. I went to the hospital and told her everything. Told her I had a daughter I never knew about. Told her I needed to be here, in Denver, not building a life in New York with someone I did not love. How did she take it? Better than I expected. Marquis smiled wryly. She said she had known for months that I was somewhere else mentally. She had been waiting for me to figure it out. She was already seeing someone else, someone she actually had feelings for. We ended things without drama, which confirmed we never had enough passion to fight over. So, you are not. No, we are not. I am here because I want to be. Because being near Lily is the only thing that matters to me right now. Just Lily. The question carried weight they both felt. Marquis met her eyes across the couch. You know the answer to that. Maybe I need to hear you say it. He moved closer, close enough to touch, though he did not yet. I am here for Lily, but I am also here for you, for the chance to understand who you are now, for the possibility that what we had is not gone, just dormant, for whatever this could become if we are brave enough to find out. I am scared. Kiara whispered. I spent 5 years protecting myself from this feeling, from wanting something I convinced myself I could not have. I know. I am scared too. Scared I will mess this up somehow. Scared I am not the man you need me to be. What if you are exactly the man I need you to be? What if you always were, and I just could not see it through the lie? Then maybe we stop being scared together. He reached out finally and took her hand. Maybe we figure this out one day at a time. No pressure, no expectations. Just two people seeing if they can find their way back to each other. She interlaced her fingers with his. One day at a time. One day at a time. Right now, I need to speak directly to you because we are at a pivotal moment in this story and in this channel. You have been with me through the heartbreak and the revelation, through the truth coming to light and the first fragile steps toward healing. You have watched Marquis become a father, and Kiara begin to trust again. You have invested your time and your emotion in this story, and I need you to know that matters. If this journey is resonating with you, if you believe in the possibility of redemption and second chances, I need you to do something right now. Hit that subscribe button, turn on the notification bell, because this story is not over, and you do not want to miss what happens next. Drop a comment telling me what you think about Marquis and Kiara's journey. Do you believe they can truly rebuild what was lost? Have you ever had to learn to trust someone again after believing the worst about them? Your engagement is not just about algorithms and metrics. It is about building a community of people who believe that stories matter, that the way we love and lose and find our way back to each other is worth exploring. So subscribe, comment, share this with someone who needs to believe that broken things can be made whole. Now let us continue. One day at a time became 1 month, then 2, then 3. Marquis restructured his entire life around being present. He opened a Denver office for Devereaux Holdings, a satellite location that allowed him to spend 3 weeks out of every month in Colorado, rather than New York. He delegated responsibilities to his executive team, discovering that his company functioned surprisingly well without his constant micromanagement. He found a house in Lily's school district, a craftsman-style home with a backyard perfect for playing and a bedroom he decorated specifically for his daughter. Purple walls, dinosaur-themed bedding, a reading nook under the window where they curled up together for stories. You are really doing this, Kiara said the first time she saw the house. You are really moving here. I told you I would. Saying and doing are different things. I've learned not to trust words, then trust actions. He gestured at the house around them. This is not a temporary gesture. This is not a visit. I am building a life here, near my daughter, near you. This is where I want to be. Lily had no such hesitation about the situation. She embraced having a father with the wholehearted commitment she brought to everything, integrating Marquis into her life as if he had always been there. She brought him to show and tell at preschool. This is my dad. He knows about pterosaurs now. She demanded he attend her dance recital, then critiqued his applause as insufficiently enthusiastic. She made him practice braiding her hair until he could do 2 decent puffs, a skill he mastered through YouTube tutorials and stubborn determination. And somewhere in the midst of all this fatherhood, something shifted between Marquis and Kiara. It happened gradually, in moments too small to pinpoint, a touch that lingered too long, a look that carried more than friendly warmth, the way they gravitated toward each other at Lily's school events, standing closer than necessary, shoulders brushing. Marquis noticed Kiara noticing him, caught her watching when she thought he was not looking, saw the way her breath changed when he entered a room. He felt it too, the pull between them that had never really died, just gone dormant during 5 years of separation. The attraction that had been immediate from that first moment in the coffee shop, now deepened by time and loss and the shared project of raising their daughter. But he had promised to go slowly, had promised not to pressure her. So he waited, letting her set the pace, trying to be patient even when patience was the last thing he felt. 4 months after that first meeting in the park, Kiara invited him to dinner at her apartment after Lily was asleep. We should talk, she said. About us. Okay. They sat on her couch with glasses of wine they barely touched, the air between them charged with everything unsaid. I've been thinking, Kiara began, about what I want, about what I am willing to risk. And I am tired of being careful. She set down her wine and turned to face him fully. I am tired of treating you like a co-parent when I feel so much more. I am tired of pretending I do not want things I am terrified to want. What do you want? You. The word came out raw and honest. I want you. I want to try again. I want to see if what we had can become something even better." Marquis set down his own wine, his heart pounding. "Are you sure? Because if we do this, if we try again, I am not going to hold back. I am going to love you with everything I have. And if that scares you, we should figure that out now. It terrifies me," she admitted. "But being without you was worse. These past 5 years, building a life alone, telling myself I was fine, I was surviving. I was not living. And now, having you here, watching you with Lily, feeling what I feel when you walk into a room. I do not want to survive anymore. I want to actually live." He reached for her, cupping her face in his hands the way he had wanted to for months. "I love you," he said. "I loved you 5 years ago. I loved you every day you were gone. And I love you now, more than I knew was possible. I love you too," she whispered. "Still, again, I do not know. I just know it never stopped." He kissed her then, finally, after months of waiting and years of longing, and she kissed him back with a desperation that matched his own. They had been given a second chance, and this time, neither of them was going to waste it. The next 6 months were the happiest of Marquis's life. He and Kiara built their relationship on a foundation of honesty that had been missing the first time. They talked about everything, the hard things and the easy things, the fears and the hopes. They went on dates like new couples do, discovering who they had become in their years apart. They blended their lives together, creating routines that included all three of them. Lily was thrilled by the development. "Does this mean you are staying forever?" she asked Marquis one morning, finding him making breakfast in her mother's kitchen. "That is the plan." "Good," she nodded with satisfaction. "I want you to stay forever. What if your mom gets tired of me?" "She will not," Lily stated with absolute certainty. "She smiles more when you are here. She did not used to smile very much." Marquis filed that observation away, adding it to the evidence of how much they had all been missing. 8 months after their first kiss, he started thinking about forever in more concrete terms. He wanted to marry her. The desire was so strong it sometimes took his breath away. He wanted to stand in front of everyone who mattered and declare that this family, this woman, this life they had built together was permanent, real, forever. But he also knew that Kiara had been hurt before. That trust, once broken, had to be rebuilt carefully. That a proposal was not something to rush just because his heart was certain. So he planned. He thought. He waited for the right moment. It came on an ordinary Tuesday night. Lily was asleep. The dishes were done. Kiara was curled on the couch with a book she was not really reading, and Marquis was sitting across from her, trying to remember why he had thought he needed a special location or an elaborate plan. This was his life. This woman reading beside him while their daughter slept down the hall. This ordinary, extraordinary moment that he wanted to repeat every day for the rest of his existence. "Marry me." The words came out before he could stop them. Kiara looked up from her book, her expression shifting from confusion to understanding. "What?" "Marry me." He slid off the couch and onto one knee, pulling a ring from his pocket. "I know this is not fancy. I know there are no flowers or string quartets or whatever movies say proposals should have. But this is real life. Our real life. And I want this. Every ordinary Tuesday. Every breakfast with Lily. Every night falling asleep next to you. I want forever, Kiara. With you." She was crying. He was crying. The ring trembled in his hand. "Yes," she whispered. "Yes, to all of it. Yes." He slid the ring onto her finger, a simple diamond that had belonged to his grandmother, and pulled her into his arms. "I love you," he said against her hair. "I love you too." She laughed through her tears. "I cannot believe you proposed while I am wearing pajamas with holes in them. I can propose again." He pulled back, grinning. "We can do it properly. Dinner, flowers, a photographer hiding in the bushes. No." She shook her head firmly. This was perfect. This was real. This was us. It was us. He agreed. The best version of us. They stayed up half the night talking about the future, about weddings and living arrangements and how to tell Lily. When they finally fell asleep, tangled together on the couch, Marquis had never felt more complete. Lily's reaction to the engagement was characteristically practical. "So, you are getting married," she confirmed over breakfast the next morning. "We are," Kiara replied. "How do you feel about that?" Lily considered, her spoon hovering over her cereal. "Does this mean I get to wear a fancy dress?" "It does." And there will be cake. Definitely cake. Then I feel good about it. She returned to her cereal. Can the cake be chocolate? We will discuss cake flavors later. Marquis interjected. But I actually wanted to ask you something important. Lily looked up, giving him her full attention. When your mom and I get married, I would like to officially adopt you. That means I would be your father legally, not just biologically. You would have my last name if you want it. And no matter what happens in the future, I would always be your dad. Lily processed this. I thought you were already my dad. I am. But this would make it official. With paperwork and everything. I like paperwork. Lily nodded. It makes things real. Will I have 2 last names like Emma at school? You can have however many last names you want. Then, yes, Lily declared. You can adopt me, but you still have to learn more dinosaur facts. That was part of our deal. Marquis laughed, reaching across the table to ruffle her hair. I have been studying. I know about feathered dinosaurs now. That is a start. She allowed. We will work on the rest. Kiara watched this exchange with tears in her eyes. We are really doing this, she said. We are really going to be a family. We already are a family. Marquis replied. Now we are just making it official. The wedding was small, just close friends and the new family they had built together. They held it in the backyard of Marcus's Denver house, the house that had become their home, with Lily as flower girl and a simple arch covered in white roses. Kiara walked down the aisle in a dress that took Marquis's breath away, carrying a bouquet of wildflowers that Lily had helped select. Marquis waited at the altar in a suit that cost more than his first car, trying not to cry and failing completely. The ceremony was brief and personal, filled with vows they had written themselves. I spent 5 years learning to live without you, Kiara said, her voice steady despite her tears. Learning to be strong alone, learning to convince myself that contentment was enough, and then you came back. And I learned that everything I thought I knew about moving on was a lie. I never moved on, Marquis. I was just waiting. And now that you are here, now that I finally understand what happened and who you really are, I am done waiting. I choose you, today and every day, forever. Marquis took a breath, steadying himself. I built an empire trying to fill the void you left, he said. Every deal, every acquisition, every accomplishment was just another attempt to distract myself from missing you. And none of it worked, because success without love is just expensive loneliness. You taught me that. You and Lily. You showed me what actually matters. And I promise, for the rest of my life, I will never forget. I will be here, present, engaged, choosing this family every single day. That is my vow. Not grand gestures, but daily choices. Showing up, staying, loving you both with everything I have. They exchanged rings. They kissed while Lily cheered and their small audience applauded. And then they were married. Finally, after everything. At the reception, Lily gave a speech that she had apparently been preparing for weeks. My mom and dad did not used to know each other, she announced to the assembled guests. Then they did. Then they did not again. Now they do forever. That is good, because Dad still needs to learn about dinosaurs, and Mom smiles more when he is here. She paused, consulting a crumpled piece of paper in her hand. Also, I wanted a dog, but they said we have to wait until after the wedding. So now it is after the wedding. Can I have a dog now? The guests laughed. Marquis and Kiara exchanged amused glances. We will discuss the dog tomorrow, Marquis promised. That is what you said last week, and I am saying it again. That is how parenting works. Lily sighed dramatically, but seemed satisfied that she had made her point. She returned to her seat and immediately began eating cake, despite the fact that dinner had not been served yet. It was chaotic and imperfect and absolutely wonderful. As the sun set over their backyard, painting everything in gold, Marquis pulled his wife onto the small dance floor for their first dance. We did it. Kiara whispered against his shoulder. We actually did it. Was there ever any doubt? Constantly. She laughed softly. But I am glad I was wrong. They swayed together, not really dancing, just holding each other while the music played. What happens now? Kiara asked. Now we live, Marquis replied. We raise our daughter. We build our life. We face whatever comes together. That sounds terrifyingly ordinary. That is the point. Ordinary is what we missed. 5 years of ordinary moments, bedtimes and breakfasts and boring Tuesdays. I do not want to miss any more. She pulled back to look at him, her eyes shining. I love you. I love you too. Always. Still. Forever. He kissed her as their daughter made exaggerated gagging sounds in the background. And for the first time in 5 years, Marquis Devereaux was exactly where he was supposed to be. 3 years later, Lily was 7 now, all arms and legs, and endless opinions. She had a dog named Rex, obviously, and a baby brother named Daniel who had arrived 2 years after the wedding. She was in 2nd grade, obsessed with marine biology now that she had exhausted the available dinosaur curriculum, and absolutely certain that she would one day discover a new species of deep-sea creature. Marquis sat on the back porch of their Denver home, watching his children play in the yard while Kiara worked on her laptop beside him. She had gone back to school after they got married, earning her nurse practitioner degree while he handled more of the childcare duties. Now she ran a clinic that provided health care to underserved communities, combining her medical skills with the passion for service that had always defined her. They had built a good life together. A real life. Are you happy? Kiara's question pulled him from his thoughts. Marquis turned to look at her, this woman who had been his first love and his greatest loss and his miraculous second chance. Unbelievably happy, he replied. So happy it scares me sometimes. Why does it scare you? Because I know how quickly it can disappear. We lost 5 years because of a lie. I spent those years certain I would never feel like this again, and now that I have it, I am terrified of losing it. Kiara set aside her laptop and took his hand. We cannot control everything, she said. We cannot protect ourselves from every possible loss, but we can choose to be present for what we have, to not waste a single moment worrying about hypothetical futures. When did you get so wise? She smiled. Somewhere between the 2nd pregnancy and the 3rd time Lily's dog ate my shoes. Marquis laughed, pulling her closer. In the yard, Lily was explaining something complicated to Daniel, who was listening with the serious attention of a 2-year-old who understood maybe 10% of the words but was completely devoted to his sister. Rex bounded between them, barking at everything and nothing. It was ordinary, messy, perfect. You know what I think about sometimes? Marquis said. What? The night you left. If you had confronted me instead of disappearing. If we had just talked, we would have figured it out. Kiara finished. We would have known about the setup. We would have had those 5 years. Maybe. Or maybe we were not ready. Maybe we needed to grow separately before we could grow together. That is very philosophical. I have had time to think about it. The conclusion I have come to is that the past does not matter. Not really. What matters is that we found our way back. Against all odds. Despite everything working against us, we found each other again. Kiara leaned her head against his shoulder. Do you think Bethany ever thinks about what she did? Honestly, I do not care, he replied. She is living her consequences somewhere, and I am living my happiness here. She does not get any more of my thoughts. That is healthy. I am trying. They sat in comfortable silence, watching their children play, listening to the sounds of a life they had almost lost. Daddy, Lily's voice carried across the yard. Daniel is eating dirt again. Marquis sighed and stood. Welcome to fatherhood. Kiara grinned. Nothing but glamour. I would not trade it for anything. He crossed the yard to rescue Daniel from his snack, scooping the toddler up while Lily provided running commentary on the nutritional inadequacy of soil consumption. And as the sun set over their Denver home, painting everything in shades of gold and amber, Marquis Devereaux understood for the first time what happiness really meant. Not success, not achievement, not the empire he had built trying to fill the void. Happiness was this: family, love, ordinary moments with extraordinary people. Happiness was the woman on the porch and the children in the yard and the chaotic, imperfect, absolutely beautiful life they had built together. Happiness was coming home. This is where the story ends for Marquis and Kiara. But I want to leave you with something to think about. This story was about second chances, about the devastating power of lies and the redemptive power of truth, about what happens when we have the courage to trust again after being hurt. But it was also about time, about the years we lose when we let fear or pride or anger make our decisions, about the moments we miss when we are too afraid to ask questions, too afraid to confront, too afraid to believe that things might not be what they seem. Marquis and Kiara lost 5 years to a lie, 5 years of their daughter's life. 5 years of love they could have shared. They got lucky. They found their way back. But not everyone gets that second chance. So I want to ask you something. Is there a conversation you have been avoiding? A question you have been afraid to ask? A relationship you abandoned without ever really knowing the whole story? Is there someone who deserves more than your assumptions? Someone who might not be what you think they are? Someone who might be waiting, just like Marquis was waiting, for you to finally show up and ask the hard questions? This story is fiction, but the lesson is real. Do not wait. Do not assume. Do not let pride or fear cost you the things that actually matter. Life is too short, and love is too precious to waste on misunderstandings. Now, I need you to do something for me. If this story touched you, if it made you think about your own life and the chances you have taken or missed, hit that like button. It takes less than a second, and it tells me that these stories matter to you. Subscribe to Mr. Dalton Storyhouse if you have not already. Turn on notifications so you never miss a new story. Every week, I bring you stories about love and loss and the complicated journey of being human. Stories that are not just entertainment, but reminders of what is possible when we choose courage over comfort. Drop a comment telling me what this story meant to you. Tell me about your own second chances or the ones you are still hoping for. This community is built on connection, on sharing our stories with each other, on knowing that we are not alone in our struggles or our hopes. Share this video with someone who needs to hear it. Someone who is nursing an old wound. Someone who walked away from something without ever knowing the whole truth. Someone who needs to believe that second chances are possible. Thank you for being here. Thank you for listening. Thank you for being part of this community. Remember, your story is not over. The best chapter might be the one you have not written yet. Until next time, this is Mr. Dalton's Story House. Stay blessed, stay hopeful, and never stop believing in the power of love to find its way home.